Hi guys, good day. This video is the evaluation about my learnings about the global interstate system. So, um, this picture here symbolizes the global interstate system. Global because it covers a wide range of topic, and interstate because of they involve many economies and system because it carries a function. And the definition of state here, as you can see, it is a political unit that has authority over its own affairs. In other words, its borders are recognized by other countries. The example of this is the United States, I think, because it carries a border and that particular country has its own affairs or set of rules to follow. And the next, it is the whole system of human interactions. The modern world system is structured politically as an interstate system, a system of competing and allying states. The example of interstate system is the importation and the exportation of products. It is considered a system of competing and allying. It is because importation of products and exportation as well, they are competing, and they compete about how much demands. Or for example of this is the petroleum. We order petroleum in several countries that produces lots of products of petroleum, and alliance as well, because in order to purchase such products you have to make an alliance through the other countries for much smoother and easier transactions. And through the system build major roadways run through multiple states. The interstate term refers to the fact that the highways are funded federally with money shared between the states. So the interstate system pala, it is the highway, and it is funded with many countries, and it is between the states, shared money between the states. And today, globalization of politics created an atmosphere wherein ideas of the nation state, state sovereignty, government control, and state policies are challenged from all sides. Challenged from all sides, it is because from our previous slides, it is being tackled that there is an allying and a competing system. And the global governance of the 21st century. There is a series of specific factors behind the emergence of global governance. The first of the list must be declining power of nation states. If states themselves were highly contingent and flux, according to Cerny 2007, it would open a possibility of emergence some form of global convergence, governance pala, to fill the void. That is according to Cerny 2007. A second factor is the vast flow of all sorts of things that run into and often right through the borders of nation through states. This could involve the flow of digital information of all sorts through the internet. So the global governance of the 21st century, as you can see in the previous slide, the internet or the social media or digital information plays a very important role in global governance in the 21st century, because as we all know, in this current era, 21st century, technology's internet plays an important role because it spreads digital information much faster, much accessible, and much more easier. Next, then there are global problems that single nation cannot hope to tackle in their own. One is the global financial crisis and panic that sweep the world periodically, which nations are often unable to deal with their own. That is according to Strange 1996. Of course, there are global problems single nation cannot tackle on the whole on their own. The one of the problems here in the 21st century is that there are lots of financial crisis that is being involved in one particular country. Of course, if there is a financial crisis, there one country can be determined as a poverty country. Next is the effects of globalization to governments. There are also effects of globalization into the environment, just not just in the people. So one of the key aspects of the thing state sovereignty is the government. So what is government? Government, it is a group of people who have the ultimate authority to act on behalf of a state. So it is self-explanatory already. The government, they give the rules and regulations, so they have the ultimate authority, and each state has its own right to self-determination, that other countries should not intervene in the affairs of the state unless there are extraordinary reasons to do so. So as we can observe, every country has its own rights of self-determination, particularly here in our local community or country in the Philippines. They obey such law and they undergo self-determination. Next is each state is autonomous into itself and responsible within its own system of government to those who are governed. A civil society within state can also act as a counterweight or as a supplement to government. So each state is divided into different regions. That's why it is a counterweight or a supplement to government. And also, there are challenges, four challenges to the government, namely traditional challenges. These traditional challenges talks about some of the traditions here in the Philippines cannot, it is against the rules of the government. I cannot give you the exact example, but there are some traditions who are not obeying because it is against on their tradition. And challenges from national and identity movement. Challenges from national identity movements. I guess the example of this is the LGBT communities and global economics, and also the global. One of the challenges of the government here is the global economics, because economics plays the most important role in the government because it involves money, and money gives power to the government. As we discussed earlier, the value of gold symbolizes how much rich is the country. The global social movement, the next challenge is the social global movement. This mainly involves the socialization on transferring into the other places. And the relevance of the state amid globalization. So what is the state again? State, it is a polity under a system of governance. It is a distinctive political community with its own set of rules and practices that is more or less separate from other communities. So state separate from other communities. So this is being highlighted here because certain regions is divided into different states. For example, the Oriental is divided into different states. That is Lupon, Mati, Banay-Banay, Manay. Those are the examples. And it has four elements, namely people, territory, government, and sovereignty. And the first element is the permanent population. As you can see here in the image being pasted in the PowerPoint, there as you can see people. Permanent population refers to the population that is linked to a specific piece of territory on a permanent basis. The population must be reasonably stable. This population does not refer to the nomadic people move from one place and another indefinite time. So the main of four elements is the people, because people plays a very important role in the society. They revolve the economic, or they control the economic more than the territory does. Of course, the government is composed by people. That's why it is refers to the population. Next is the territory. As you can see, this big image is a territory and it is divided into different states. This divided. Um, it is a administrative division, usually an area that is under a jurisdiction of a state. Jurisdiction of a state because certain places follow rules and regulations to maintain peace. And in terms of tactical economics, a territory has a clear boundaries. A territory is effectively controlled by the third element, and that is government. This territory is provided a good governance by the government, and the next is the government. Go- Government is the system or the group of people governing and organize the community, generally the state. It can also describe the leadership of a supranational organization. The government regulates regulations among its people and other states. So government provides good governance, and government is run by the politicians, as we all know, by the jurisdictions. So they can follow certain rules and regulations. They provided laws to maintain peace and economic alliances towards other countries, because this topic is all about the global interstate system. It is about negotiating with other country. So sovereignty, this is the full right and power of governing body over itself. So the answer of this is can be seen in the first sentences, is full right and power of governing body over itself without any interference from outside sources or bodies. In political theory, sovereignty is the substantive term designing supreme legitimate authority over some polity. In international law, sovereignty is the exercise of the body by a state. So this sovereignty has its law, which dictates that every human has its power and rights, which sovereignty can be simply defined as the human rights, or every human has its right and power, both economically and personally. Next slide would be the peace treaties and military alliances, the UN and the NATO or NATO. Global politics entail relationship of countries and different governments and non-government organizations. The first one is the United Nations. The United Nations, or it is an intergovernmental organization that aims to maintain international peace and security, develop friendly relations among nations, achieve international cooperations, and be center for harmonizing the actions of nations. So as we can observe, the membering countries of these United Nations is involved in the conservation of peace. It means that if a certain country that is member of these United Nations has its conflict and is declaring a war, this United Nations is involved for resolving this kind of issues. The next is United Nations is the one leading politically organizations in the world where nation states meet and deliberate. However, it remains as an independent actor in global politics. In the UN is not about fights. It has a program called UNICEF, or the United Nations Children Emergency Fund. So this is the UNICEF. As you can see, this logo is very familiar. It shows a mother or a parent to child relationship. United Nations agency responsible for providing humanitarian and developmental aid to children worldwide. The agency is among the most widespread recognizable social welfare organization in the world, with a presence in 192 countries and territories. It has 192 countries and territories. That is UNICEF. So the primary goal of the UNICEF is to help children around the world. So as you can see in the logo again, they're shown the relationship between the parent and the child. Goal is help to children around the world. In terms of economic issues, the main focus of the UN is the reduction of global inequality. The Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, covers a range concern for the improvement of all aspects in life. That includes the global equality or the global equity. UNEP or UNEP, environmental issues such as pollution and hazardous waste are addressed through United Nations Environment Program, or UNEP. As we can observe, the United Nations has its own program. This is involved in there, the UNEP, and UNEP is responsible for coordinating the UN's environmental, note that environmental, coordinating the UN's environmental activities and assisting developing countries in having environmentally sound policies and practices for it. I think the example of this is that the global warming, and they are involved in the prevention of the global warming. The next slide is the IPCC, or the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It is an intergovernmental body of the United Nations that dedicated to providing the world with objective scientific information relevant to understanding scientific basis of the risk of human-induced climate change, its natural, political, and economic impacts and risks and possible response to nations. Intergovernmental. It is understandable in its logo here. The next is the UN has also International Court Justice, or ICJ, usually referred to as the World Court, or they have their own certain rules and regulations to follow. ICJ is one of the six principal organs of the United Nations. It settles disputes between states in accordance with the international law and gives advisory opinions on international legal issues. So they provide laws. And the next is the ICC. ICC, or International Criminal Court. It is an intergovernmental organization and international tribunal that sits in the Hague, Hague, Netherlands. It is the first and only permanent international court with jurisdiction to prosecute individuals for the international crimes and genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and the other crimes for aggression. This criminal court, except for ICJ, they also have this ICC, or the criminal court. The next one is the ITLOS, or the International Tribunal for Law of the Sea. And it is an intergovernmental organization also created by the mandate of the Third United Nations Conference of the Law of the Sea. It is the establishment by the United States Convention in the laws of signed by Montego, Jamaica on December 10, 1982. I think they are involved once in the security of the biodiversity in the oceans. Yes. And OCHR is the next, or the Office of the United Nations of High Commissioner for Human Rights, is a department of Secretariat of the United Nations that works to promote of the protect of human rights that are guaranteed under the international law and disputed in the Universal Human Rights of the 1948. This slide also is the 1948. This protects the human life of every membering countries and member of the countries. The next is NATO. It is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and is also called the North Atlantic Alliance. Is an intergovernmental military alliance between 30 European and North American countries. The organization implements the North Atlantic Treaty and was signed on April 1949. So it is an organization, Atlantic Treaty, involving 30 European countries and American countries. And the next is the citizenship. So as you can see, the world is composed of many citizens. That's why it is this logo is symbolizes citizenship. Is the status of a person recognized under the custom or law of a sovereign state or local jurisdiction as a member of or belonging to the state. It is the associated with rights and obligations. Of course, if you are a citizen, member in a certain country, you have certain rights, you have your personal rights, and as well as it has you have your own um, role to follow, to obey, because every person is the steward of this community, means that they have their own duties into our environment. And global citizenship does not automatically entail a single attitude and particularly value with globalization. Citizenship does not automatically entail a single attitude because every person membering in a certain country has different point of views. Next is the World Social Forum. World Social Forum. So WSF, or the World Social Forum, is an annual meeting forum, um, annual society organization first held in Brazil, which offers a self-conscious effort to development and alternative future through championing of counter-hegemonic globalization. It is centered on addressing the lack of democracy in economic and political affairs. That is according to Fischer and Ponea 2003. Social Forum, its main role is to address democracy, or again equality or equity in certain country. It means that there is no high or low. You may be an authority or not. All have the same power. So that's it. That's all. My comprehension and evaluation, how much I understand this topic. It is I, John Bayuang, again from BSN1. Thank you and God bless.